We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday. Still plenty of shit going on, stuff to talk about. We have a guest. I'll get to the guest in a second. I need to mention something. My wife and I were out at Costco today, as old people and young people tend to do, and it was a fucking madhouse with July 4th coming up. But we were picking up some fruits and vegetables and all that kind of stuff, and we're standing in line checking out. And this perfectly lovely woman comes walking up to me and says, "Hey, you're on TikTok." And then she can't remember the name. She goes, "You're the old," I go, "Rational Boomer?" And he goes, "Yeah, that's right. That's right." And I go, "What are you trying to say about being old?" And then she thought I was mad about it, which I'm not. I call myself old all the time. And so we talked for a time, and I just wanted to say hi to Eileen. She says she listens to the podcast every morning as she's out there running. Every morning when I get up, the last fucking thing I'm going to do is run, unless I have to go to the bathroom, and that's probably 50 feet. So, other than that, Eileen, thank you for coming up to me. Um, People seem surprised or maybe even excited to meet me, which I think is crazy. Just so you know, I'm way more excited to find people who recognize me and come up to me than you are in actually meeting me. So thank you. It is a great compliment for you to do that. So Eileen, have a great run. Now, let's get to the guest we have on board. His name is Mike. He is from Utah. He's a younger man. He's in his 50s. We'll try to talk slow for you younger, less experienced folks. Mike, thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Now you're in Utah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you got a lot of Trumplafucks out in Utah.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. It's I cannot believe how many there are.
Yeah,
they're still voting for this guy, and Jesus is their savior. You know.
Well, after Donald Trump. Donald Trump
Oh,
has
yeah.
apparently taken precedence over Jesus. What do you do in Utah? What do you do for a living?
Mike, I work for the government.
Oh my God, not the NSA or the
No,
CIA.
the U.S. Air Force.
U.S. Air Force. So you're in the Air Force.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm a civilian.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm not going to press you on that because it doesn't matter
Yeah,
in this conversation, and we don't want to get you in any more trouble than you might get into. Let me ask you, in working with the government as you do, and you come on a show like this, are you worried about backlash or anything? I mean, we don't have that big an audience, so chances are nobody's going to hear it from where you are. But does that concern you at all? Because if it is, I'll tamp it down a little bit. Not much,
it,
but a little bit.
it does a little bit. Just I it does a little bit. Yes.
I tell you what you do. You just let me talk the shit, and you just express your feelings. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That way, that way, if you get questioned about it after, this is what you do. They ask you if you were on the show and you heard what I was saying. All you have to do is say, "That crazy motherfucker. I had no idea what I was getting into." Blame it all on me.
Roger that, Mike.
All right. All right. Um, so you're in Utah. You got a lot of Trumplafucks there. You're a blue dot in Utah. What is it that brought you to listening to this Rational Boomer stuff and the podcast and such? What brought you into that?
Well, I first started seeing you on TikTok, and then I just I liked what you had to say. You're no nonsense. You no bullshit. You just tell it like it is, and that's what I liked. And so I started listening to your podcast.
You know what's interesting about being no bullshit and blunt? It plays pretty good on the internet, sometimes even on the radio. But in person, some people can find it as being a lot. Uh, we'll be out someplace, and if some Trump the fuck has the audacity to say something stupid, I can't help myself. I'm not going to yell and scream at them, but I'm going to straighten their shit out. And when that happens,
Absolutely.
And when that happens, something like that is heard, and while my family is on board with everything I believe, as soon as they hear somebody say something like that in front of me, it's like, oh shit, here we go. And it usually doesn't go well for the Trumplafuck because they have no facts or substance to base anything on, so they end up looking dumb.
I know I work with so many, and it's you you ask them to like go read like Project 2025 or just go to congress.gov
Yeah,
and read some of the shit that that they're voting against their own best interest on,
right.
and they won't do it.
No.
They're blindly voting because they were raised fucking Republican.
Now, do you have occasion to get in these conversations with people you work with or people around? I mean, is that something that happens fairly common where somebody will be a Trumplafuck and then you offer some input? And does that happen very often? Or do you try to avoid that?
Um, it happens. There's a couple of guys at work that I talk to about it. Being a government employee, we're not supposed to talk politics.
Right.
Um, but there are a couple of guys at work that I talk to that are Trumplafucks, and they are just they listen to Hannity and that fucking Waters and all those idiots on Fox News,
Right.
and they are just completely fucking brainwashed. I
Yeah.
don't understand it. It's like I tell them, go get your news, check shit, you know, get the facts. Don't
Right.
listen to these fucking morons, and do a little research.
You know, I said today on TikTok, I said, I'm almost, I will watch the mainstream media, the cable news things, just to get stories. And then when I have the stories in mind, I'll kind of dig out the facts from other sources because I don't necessarily trust the cable news services. But I've gotten to the point where I'm almost tired of watching any media outlet because they all do something fucked up. You've got Fox and you've got OAN and Newsmax, which they're completely lying. But then you've got the left side people pandering. I mean, we had this debate the other day, and everybody, and I want to see what you thought of the debate. Somebody I haven't talked to before. They were concerned about Joe being slow and this and that and the other thing. And they think, oh, maybe he should step aside. But here's Donald Trump lying, talking about racist things, misogynistic things, anti Semitic things, and nobody says a word about him stepping aside. I don't understand how a left side media company can do this. They're trying to instill some fear and start up a bunch of bullshit so it translates into viewers and money to them. And I'm getting tired of that bullshit.
I absolutely 100% agree. Um, my opinion on that debate is Joe Biden wasn't his best performance, but the man stayed on topic, answered the goddamn questions, and didn't bullshit the American people.
No.
He answered the fucking questions, and Donald Trump sat up there, and every fucking chance he got, he mentioned the fucking border or uh, black jobs.
Yeah.
What is wrong with you, you stupid fuck?
And why have these black jobs been hidden from us non-racist white guys? Why can't we have these black jobs?
On your podcast, I was listening to your podcast today, and you were talking about that and watching the TikToks with all the guys searching for black jobs, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got such a kick out of that. It's
Well, the thing about it is that the media is just prone to do whatever it takes to get viewers and whether it be the contest. Now, I know you're one of the many people that are concerned about what's going to happen in November. People keep asking me this and they say, "What do you think? Do you think Donald Trump will win?" I
fuck
personally
no.
think Donald Trump doesn't have a prayer. I personally think he's going to get beat probably worse than any other candidate in history because of
I
all the
would have
things
to
going
agree.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I don't want to say there's going to be this big giant blue wave like they predicted with the red wave, but I I think that he has woke the American people up, and and I mean woke. That's a pun.
No, I know what you're
Wake
saying.
up.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, I wanted to bring something up about that debate. I brought something up on TikTok yesterday, and I wanted to mention it too. Everybody's talking about what happened in the debate. To be perfectly honest, and I think people recognize it and they're reacting appropriately, Donald Trump, what he did was just as bad, if not worse, than what Joe Biden did. And I think it cost Donald Trump a lot of credibility. But whether Joe Biden was on a cold medicine, whether he was tired, uh, this is the way I look at it. Having been somebody who's had some debates in my time, I think he was mishandled by his handlers. I think he was given the wrong strategy. I mean, they knew that Donald Trump was going to come out rolling down the hill like a fucking snowball, just spewing anything, stream of consciousness. And when somebody is doing that, you can't be the counterpart and saying, well, jobs are such and start spewing data and facts. You can't do that. You're going to come off low energy no matter what you do against this clown. What you really have to do is match the energy if you can. But if you can't, what they should have done is said, Joe, you know roughly what's going on. This guy can't quote a fucking fact. Why do you need to know the facts? Just go in there and be yourself. And people would say, well, I still don't think he could do it. I want to point out one thing. If you watch that debate, there was one point that Joe Biden held his own, talking back and forth. He didn't seem tired. He didn't seem out of it. And that was the point where they were talking about golf games, handicaps, and how far they could hit it. You notice that? Donald
Yeah,
Trump's going after Biden, and Biden's going right after him like he's a totally different person. It's because he wasn't harnessed by this strategy, this data that he had to spew. I mean, he was probably nervous about coming in because there's a lot riding on it. But had they let Joe Biden just do what Joe Biden does, let him go um, shoot from the hip, because he's capable of doing that. We've seen him do it. I think,
absolutely. Like the speech right after. My
right.
God, did you hear the man?
Yep. He did a great job. And I think Joe Biden was there was a disservice to Joe Biden making him do what he did. I mean, he could have chose not to, but he's trying to do the right thing. So, as I've said before, this debate thing is going to be something that goes by the wayside, even though the media continues to try to throw this, should Joe step aside? What do you what are your thoughts about him stepping aside? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Absolutely not.
No, I agree.
He needs to be our front runner. Like uh you said on an earlier your earlier podcast, you talked about that young kid Harry.
Yeah, Harry
Uh,
Sisson.
yes, that kid's a brilliant kid.
He is.
I follow him. He's smart as shit, and I hope to God he can get through to Gen Z and
Right.
Alpha and all those kids. Um, I think I got off topic.
Oh no, no, no.
uh,
That's all right.
uh, but I Joe Biden, he's the guy's there. Period.
Well, here
He's sharp as a tack.
people are saying Joe Biden should step aside. We've even got some Democrats in Congress saying that. And for me, the way I look at that is to take Joe Biden out of the campaign or out of the election is just a panic move.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if it's about whether they're really worried about whether or not Joe Biden can do it or not. They're just panicking. Oh my God, if we don't take Joe out, we'll lose the election. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it. You know,
Well,
first of
who the
all,
fuck are they going to put in?
well, that's exactly right. And you know, the thing about it is the only person that's going to make the decision as to whether or not Joe steps aside is Joe. He's really got the power to decide that or not decide that. And Joe wasn't going to run in 2024, um, because he said he was a transitional president, meaning he'd go there for one term and then get off to a new generation this time. The only reason he stuck it out is because Donald Trump decided to run again, and he felt like, well, I beat him once, I'm the one chance to beat him again and be done with him finally. I don't think he wanted to run, um, but you make a good point. Okay, so you pulled Joe Biden off. Who are you going to get? There's a lot of good potential candidates, but the fact of the matter is you got 4 months to ramp this shit up, get a bunch of money, and get people switching their attention to this new person. Too fucking late. It's too late. You should have done this 2 years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, who's going to replace him? Gavin Newsom. I don't know who could replace him. Nobody can.
Well,
Joe Biden has done more for this country. He's probably one of the best presidents we have ever had. And people just need to look at it. Look at the shit that he's accomplished.
right.
You know what I mean?
Well, he's certainly been the most productive president in the history in their first 4 years. It's been truly amazing what he's done, because he's done it all while the Republicans are trying to block him every step of the way. The Republicans are doing to Joe Biden exactly what they tried to do with Obama, but Joe Biden's got more done than Obama did his first 4 years.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm not besmirching Obama. I love Obama, but that's the amazing thing here is you got a guy that's been so productive, so successful as a president, and you're ready to say, well, he had a bad debate, so we're going to dump him. That's just fucking foolish. That makes no sense.
I 100% agree with you on that. And my God, look at just everything he's done. The Chips and Science Act, everything. I can't even think of it right now. I'm so
Well, the infrastructure, the COVID relief bill, the CHIPS Act,
yeah,
like you said, there's all kinds of things. And he's been productive. The stock market is at its highest levels ever. Unemployment is the lowest ever. I mean, what more does a motherfucker have to do?
yeah. And that goddamn moron the other night, he was saying that he had the best economy ever. Motherfucker, really?
That was never the truth. I mean, there were people
Never.
before him that had better economies. Donald
Well,
Trump just used whatever.
he was riding the coattails of Barack Obama.
Right.
Period. And then COVID hit, and that's where I think our country I don't know. I think that's where our country kind of latched onto that son of a bitch, because they think that it was all COVID. No, he was just a piece of shit.
Well, when people say to me, oh, you can't hold that against Donald Trump because of COVID, I explain to them this. Had he been a normal president, had he done actually anything, had he not been negligent, had he not disbanded the committee that handles pandemics and the strategy he threw out the window, had he not done that, had he done his job just to the smallest degree, COVID would not have gotten that bad. There wouldn't have been as many shutdowns for as long as it was. So if he was negligent with COVID, he's got to own that fucking economy he left with.
Absolutely. I was watching a thing on TikTok actually that showed how he deregulated everything.
Yeah.
And just from like 2017 to 2019, and he from there was like the CDC in China, it went from like 40 something employees down to 14.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like what, why would you take people out of jobs like that?
Well,
Government jobs like that.
I have a theory about Donald Trump. See what you think about this. Donald Trump's not a bright man. I mean, literally, I'm not just trying to say be mean. All you have to do is listen to him. He's not a bright man. He's also a narcissist, which means I know for a fact that narcissists are very easily manipulated. All you do is pat them on the butt and say you're a fucking genius, and they'll do anything you want. I think all of what came out of Donald Trump, at least initially, was by way of manipulations from the Mitch McConnells, the Republicans of all types. They kind of manipulated him to do these things. And he did them because he found them to be beneficial, whether it be in fundraising or votes or what have you. That's why, it's important to leave the onus on the Republicans as a whole and not just Donald Trump. Donald Trump was basically a fucking tool in more ways than one.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I absolutely believe that. I don't know if you've heard. I'm sure you have that his IQ is just a double digit,
Yeah.
somewhere in the 70s.
Right.
But I think the guy. Oh, I don't want to say this because it's not politically correct, so I won't. But I think he
Whisper
is
to me and I'll say it because I don't give a fuck.
a fucking retard.
Oh, now see, that's a little different story. It's a good thing my wife's not in here. She doesn't like the
I
R word.
know. I
I know
didn't
what you're
want to say
saying,
that.
though. I know what you're saying.
The man is not intelligent at
No,
all.
no. He's not. And all you
Just
have to do is listen to him, and you can tell that.
ex- exactly. You listen to his speeches. I mean, the whole um, battery boat shark fucking thing. What the fuck? I listened to that goddamn speech, and I was like, "You people are still voting for this man?
Yeah, no,
What the fuck?"
not only that, when you hear something that unhinged and that discombobulated, still no
And
one's saying he should step aside. This
and
motherfucker's unhinged.
exactly. And the whole fucking abortion after birth. How is that possible? For fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
That is not possible, Mike.
No, it's not. It's not true. Everything he said was untrue, from black jobs to late term abortion, to him having the greatest economy. Donald Trump cannot help himself but lie. And I've told this story before, and you have to understand how narcissists think. Everything is either the greatest or the worst. Okay. And the way the analogy I give is when I was a little boy, my dad was a narcissist. He was a lot like Donald Trump, but he was smarter, which made him more dangerous.
Oh, absolutely.
But let's say I'm 10 years old, okay? And I want to go do something that's maybe a little advanced for my age, but I'm smart. I'm 10 years old. He would look at me and he'd go, "You can't do that. You're 9 years old." I go, "Dad, I'm 10. You're 9 years old and you can't do it." He had to make that little fudge just to make his point even stronger. But then when I did something stupid, he would say, "You're fucking 11 years old." He would always enhance everything he said to make his point. And on a much bigger scale, that's exactly what Donald Trump does. It's either the greatest thing or the worst thing. I'm
Yeah.
being treated the worst of any president ever. I had the greatest economy ever. This is how he talks, and it's kind of a code if you understand how these people talk. It's all a lie.
Yeah. Hillary Clinton was 100% right.
Right.
She was. The man is just. I don't know how to say it. He's a fucking traitor to the United States.
Well, there's no
Period.
question about that. Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, we know that he stole those documents. And how do we know? Because they took them out of his fucking house. That's how we know. And he tried to hide them. And we know he disseminated them too. These are all the essence of actually criminal activity. To be fucking around with all this stuff as we are is absolutely ridiculous. So now we've got the no doubt we'll get to this, is that we have the Supreme Court coming up with this uh, partial immunity, this immunity
Yeah.
that goes for official duties. Now, everybody's crying and whining, oh my God, the world's going to end. That's not really the way it goes. I mean, it was a horrible decision, uh, but nothing really has been decided yet. People think, oh, they made that decision. Now Joe Biden can do this and Donald Trump can do that. That's not true because we don't know what an official act is or an unofficial act is because
Well, I think,
they didn't stipulate that. They're giving it to Judge Chutkin to figure out what's official and what's not official.
well, I think she's going to, I think she's going to do us right. And she's going to figure out what's official and what's not really fast.
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen. This puts it back in the process again. Once she makes that decision, then it's going to get appealed, and then it's going to get appealed again. And theoretically, it will get back to the Supreme Court. The only saving grace here, it's going to take a little while because she's going to do something. She's going to have the prosecution and the defense lay out and argue. It's going to be almost like a pretrial. They're going to have to argue the evidence if they're going to determine what's official and what's not official. So there's going to be a lot of evidence exposed before the election, even though the trial hasn't started, which is not something Donald Trump wants. I don't think Jack Smith wants it either, but that's what's going to happen. And once
Right.
she makes a decision, she'll make the right decision, but then it will go to appeals. And my point is, it's going to go well past the election. And
Yes.
people think that's bad news, but think about this. After the election, after Donald Trump loses, we're going to be living in a different world then. They're going to be addressing the Supreme Court and hopefully doing some adjustments there to make it more realistic. So if it does go past the election, I don't really care.
Oh, well, that, and I hope Jack Smith actually goes after, like that Marjorie Taylor Greene, that dumb bitch, and all those far right sons of bitches. That Mike Johnson,
Yeah.
I guarantee he has something to do with January 6th. Jim Jordan, all them stupid bastards back there. I can't believe those states vote those people in.
Yeah.
Ohio, Georgia, and the Carolinas, and
It's pretty disappointing.
it are, yeah, it is. But I think after all this shit that's gone on here recently, that the American people are actually seeing what's going on, and they are going to come together as the American people. We're strong enough to do this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, people think that this immunity thing, depending on how it all goes, it shuts down all three trials. Even Donald
No,
Trump said, I'm immune from everything. And that's just not the case. The fact is regardless of what's official and what's unofficial, it might pare down some of the charges in each of these trials. But we know Donald Trump doesn't need 88 convictions to be fucking done. He needs one or two. He's already got 34. So, what the fuck?
yeah,
I'm not worried about it. He's already got more than he can handle. And the other trials, even if he only gets one felony, which is ridiculous, he's still going to jail for those particular trials, guaranteed, especially now that he's already a convicted felon.
I would just like to see what you said earlier, him die as a broke
Broke ass bitch is what I said.
broke ass bitch, broke ass lonely man in a 1-bedroom apartment with no goddamn furniture.
Well, you know what? When you look at it right now, he's kind of on the road to that. He's got a lot of money tied up in these bonds. He's not making any money off of any of his businesses. They're all failing. He's not collecting as much money as he claims he's collecting. He doesn't have a friend in the world. I mean, he's been to court, he's been to all these things, and Melania never fucking shows up. His kids barely show up. The only people that show up are the ones that think they can get something from him in terms of his favor or money or votes. And when that is no longer a thing, he's going to be out there, an island unto himself, having to deal with 3 serious trials and no protection.
Mike, let me ask you this: what do you think about the pictures of his jet being parked out on the tarmac with Russia and the Saudis?
Um,
I think that's pretty goddamn suspicious.
well, it is a little suspicious. I want to avoid getting to the
I
conspiracy theory
yeah
part. You know,
I
like
agree. I,
well, like he buried his wife on the golf course, and people keep telling me, oh, he's got a bunch of stuff in there, which makes no sense to me. If you've got stuff you want, why would you put it in a coffin in a grave that you can't have access to? Why would you do if you just want to get rid of it, burn the shit? But
but it's his golf course, so if he wants to, he can go dig that shit up. She
yeah,
was
but it's going to make
cremated for
news.
hell's
It's going to
sakes.
make news, though. Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe 10 years down the road when he's dead, his son can dig it up and grab all the shit. I don't know.
And
Um,
sell it to Russia.
yeah. Well, by that time, I don't know.
I'm just kidding. I'm just
No, no,
kidding.
no, no, no. Sadly, it's not a joke because he more than likely has either sold it or traded it to Russia, Saudi Arabia. I mean, I've told this story before. Here's the irony of it. This is kind of a stretch, but we know that Hamas attacked Israel. It was kind of a surprise. Hamas would never do that with how strong Israel is, but they did. And part of it was because they were encouraged and supported by Iran, who is encouraged and supported by Russia. And Russia had a reason to want this all to go on because it made Joe Biden look bad and it took the attention away from the Ukraine war. Now, the interesting thing is when Donald Trump first entered office, you remember the story where he was in the Oval Office and he was meeting with 2 Russians, both of which were you find out were spies.
Yeah,
In that meeting, it was, and you have to go back and remember this, but in that meeting, it was said that Donald Trump inadvertently gave out some military top secret information. And everybody said, well, he's a new president. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. But that military information was Israeli information. He handed it to the Russian spies. And then several years later, we had this attack at a very opportune time for both Russia and Donald Trump. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but when you talk about Trumplafucks and Republicans and Russians, it's not that crazy to think that they would go to that extent and take that time to put something like this together.
I 100% agree. That's like with the whole. I can't remember the reporter's name. The Saudi Arabian reporter that
Yeah,
was
no,
murdered.
right.
It this is it's just crazy.
Yeah,
It if it adds up, come on.
yeah,
The motherfucker, uh, he's just a traitor. Period.
yeah. I mean, it's somebody. I was watching one TikToker and she was talking. She gave this scenario, and I thought she was talking about Trump. She was talking about somebody else. It was Stella Maggs. She's great on TikTok. But
Yes, she is. I agree.
when she was talking about this woman that she was doing the TikTok about, I was thinking she was talking about Trump. And the way she described it is it's like watching one of those horror movies where the guy attacks people or whatever, and then somebody looks like they kill him, but he comes back to life. And he keeps coming back to life. It's like they can't kill the motherfucker. And that's the feeling I think a lot of people get with Donald Trump. He keeps slipping in and slipping out. Uh, but he's not really. He's taking quite a toll with these bonds and sucking up all this money and being on trial and all this shit. It's but he's been a nightmare, and people are waiting for him to finally be fucking vanquished.
Yeah. It's, I yeah, I I don't know. Um,
You told me that um, regarding the election coming up, you're nervous, you're concerned, maybe even a little scared about the potential outcome. You feel uncertain about what's going to happen? And I'm not calling you out on this. I just want to know because a
no,
lot of people feel that way.
I I am, just because of where I live.
Yeah.
Um, because I hear what everybody around me is saying, and they're all um, hypnotized by Fox News, OAN, and all that bullshit, and they all believe it. They all believe everything. They all believe that it was rigged. Horse shit, motherfuckers. Come on.
Is
Not everything is rigged.
no. How could everything be rigged? That's it.
Yeah, it's
Everything's
only
rigged.
rigged when it comes to fucking Donald Trump.
Right. Right.
Come on,
Now, is there
wake
you're
up.
uh, um, Mike is in Utah, and is there any truth to the story that you're changing your license plates to the home of MAGA, Mormons, and morons? Is that a possibility? If not,
That yeah. They're taking the ski Utah off and putting a Donald Trump image on the plate.
right.
Yeah, they're just dipshits here.
Well, I've talked to people in other states. I've got somebody who I talked to from Ohio who was a blue dot. I've talked to other people that are in red areas and they're that blue dot. How is life for you in that circumstance? Because, again, you've got MAGAs and you've got Mormons. And I've said I spent some time living in a town with Mormons, working for a Mormon, having a landlord as a Mormon. They were perfectly friendly to me and nice to me, but their ideas are just kind of fucking out there. Um, but I can't imagine what it would be like to be in a day-to-day life, whether you're going to work or going to fish or whatever the fuck you're going to do, and you got nothing but MAGA and Mormons.
Mike,
One's a
Mike, you
one's a
know
cult,
what?
and the other one is a worse cult.
Yeah, you know why you always take two Mormons with you fishing, right?
No,
Because if you only take one, he'll drink all your beer.
good point. Good point.
But the Mormons are good people in general. I can't speak bad about them, other than they are hypocrites and they are in a cult.
But they're really
Worse,
nice people otherwise.
yeah. But the fact that this state is so Republican, I mean, the Republicans are running unopposed.
Yeah.
There are no Democrats here to run against him, and it's almost made me want to try and run for something in a county that's less populated. You know what I mean?
Well, you know what you got to do for a campaign poster or a commercial. You need to go out and do the pitch, but you must be wearing a magic diaper or a magic underwear. That way you could appeal to the Trumplafucks and the Mormons.
Right? Real men wear diapers, right?
But is it? Yeah. Yeah. I was 19 years old and I was kind of irreverent, hard as that may seem to believe. And so when I was dealing with the Mormons, I didn't take it too seriously, and I kind of fucked with them a little bit. And I'm sorry I did, because they did try to be nice to me. They treated me fairly. They just tried to push their beliefs on me. And like I told you before we went on, when they kept trying to push Mormonism on me, I said, listen, I'm 19, 20 years old, and my mom spent my entire life trying to make me a fucking Lutheran, and that didn't work. I don't think in the short time I'm going to be here that you're going to turn me into a Mormon, especially when it involves stopping doing things that are the only things I like to fucking do.
Exactly. And, yeah, I invite the missionaries in my house all the time, and I counter them with, your book says this bullshit.
Yeah.
you know,
I love the answer they always give when they can answer. Like, well, how do you know this is true? Well, I feel a warmth in my heart.
yeah, and it's the Holy Ghost.
Now that's the pizza you had earlier. It's not the Holy Ghost. You shouldn't have had anchovies, bitch.
Yeah, it's your heartburn, you dumbass.
Well, Mike, I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. and we'll get back. We'll talk some about some of the other things going on, like the delay in the sentencing now. I know a lot of people are concerned about that, so we need to talk about it. But we're talking to Mike from Utah on the Rational Boomer podcast. We'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. We're back on the Rational Boomer podcast. We have a guest today, as you know, Mike from Utah. He's a gentleman who listens to the program, is of a like mind, and we're talking a bit about some of the things that have been happening as of late. And Mike, I need to bring this up because this is something that happened yesterday. And just so folks know, this is being recorded at night on Tuesday, but you're listening to it on Wednesday morning. So, Mike, when I say yesterday, I mean today, but I really mean yesterday. You get it. Anyway, as soon as the Supreme Court came down with their decision that there's a certain amount of immunity for president, Donald Trump's team filed a motion saying, we got immunity now, so we can just forget about this case in the Manhattan district. Yeah, I was convicted, but since I'm immune now, we can just forget about it, which is absolutely ridiculous. But the judge has to take a look at that motion and has to answer that motion. And then we heard that DA Bragg said, if you need some extra time, go ahead for delay the sentencing, which I thought it made no sense to me. But then the judge comes out yesterday and says, look, we'll delay the sentencing to the 17th or 18th of September. You'll get a chance to put together your case, present it to me, and then no doubt the judge will say, fuck yourself, because they've already talked about this. What it is it's not the whole case. It's about a question or evidence from somebody that came out while he was president. So he's saying that evidence shouldn't be included. He was denied it last time. He'll be denied it this time. But when you heard about this delay, what was your first thought about the delay in sentencing?
My thought was like, this is bullshit. Why are they delaying it? He's already been convicted, number one.
Yeah.
Why are we delaying this?
Well, I can tell you why they're delaying it. Not because they have to. The judge should say, fuck yourself and move on. But the judge is starting to think ahead a little bit. And he knows this is going to be appealed. And they're going to be hard pressed to find things to use as an appeal. And if he was to just turn this down at face value, they would come back and say, well, I made this file and he just turned it down. He didn't even listen to it. And then they would give him some more fuel for the appeal. So the judge is trying to keep his verdict and his trial safe and give him what he wants and extend it out a couple of months. That's what he's doing. He's not going to agree with Donald Trump. He can't. He already has denied this. But that's why he's trying to protect the integrity of the trial.
Yeah, okay, I see that. But the fact of the matter is Donald Trump, they already convicted him. Let's just get this over with. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I agree. I mean, I was disappointed as anybody, but I'm going to throw this one at you and see what you think. The Democrats are better off if the sentence comes in September than if it comes today. Does that make any sense to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because if they get the sentence on July 11th, that's 17 weeks away from the election.
Yes.
They do it in September, it's 7 weeks away. The closer to the election, the more it's going to be in people's minds. It's going to be kind of like a quasi October surprise.
Like you said in earlier podcasts, that the American people forget things immediately.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
I
like,
yeah, I agree with you.
like,
Yes.
like Eileen, who I met yesterday. He said, "Oh, you're the old guy, the old." I'm teasing you, Eileen. It was lovely to meet you, and you're a wonderful woman, and I appreciate you listen. And frankly, my own
Eileen,
family,
national boomer.
rational boomer. Next time I see you, Eileen, I expect to have that tattooed on your arm. Rational boomer. I'm kidding. Don't do that. Don't fucking do that. But but I know what you're saying though. It's like this. We're kind of like we as a people are kind of like Charlie Brown when Lucy was holding the football. Every time we get ready to kick the football, she pulls it away, and that's what it seems like. I mean, some people come to me and they say Donald Trump has not been held accountable for anything. Now, I beg to differ there. He's been found liable for $500 million in his lawsuits. He lost. He's been convicted of 34 felony charges. He lost. He is being held accountable. If that were to happen to any one of us, we'd be devastated. So to say
Well,
he's not accountable up to this point, that's not right.
well, I understand that too, but if it happened to any one of us, we'd be in goddamn jail right now.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
And that fat orange fuck, he's still walking free. I I apologize for the.
Don't apologize.
You don't care, Mike. I know.
You got to remember where you are. When I was talking to Eileen in Costco, um, she was talking about Trump and she was mad and she just kind of mouthed, motherfucker. And I go, Eileen, who are you talking to? You really think you have to quiet up, motherfucker? She goes, well, I just don't want to do it in public. I said, I just did. So speak it, say what you believe, and don't worry about what you say here. This is a free zone. You can say whatever you want. I mean, that's the point. I spent years in radio where people told me I can't say this or I should say this. So we take the opportunity here on the Rational Boomer podcast to say whatever the fuck we want. And if they don't
Well,
like it, they don't have to fucking listen.
absolutely, and I just think that that son of a bitch should be in jail, just
Yeah.
like any one of us would be.
Well, that's one of the things I was going to talk about too, and see what you think about this and what other folks think. I know I'll get emails about this. But if Donald Trump has done anything, he's exposed that our judicial system is incredibly flawed,
Our
incredibly
Supreme
weak. It has no teeth at all.
our Supreme Court. If there is one thing the American people should vote for this November, it's the goddamn Supreme Court.
Yeah.
It, it, we need to clean it up. I wish that Congress had enough backbone that they would impeach them sons of bitches, uh, uh, Thomas and Sotomayor.
Not
You,
Sotomayor. She's a liberal, but
not Sotomayor. Alito.
Kavanaugh, Alito, Comey, all these things. But here's the thing, and I hear people say that all the time. I wish they had the backbone to impeach him. It's not about backbone. It's about power. As long as we don't have the majority in the House, there's no way they can impeach him because the Republicans won't vote to impeach them. It has nothing to do with backbone. It has to do, whose fault it is that we can't impeach him? It's our fault because the way
Yeah,
we voted, the way we were apathetic all those years. So
the
now
way we didn't vote, the
right.
way we didn't vote.
So
That's whose fault it is.
now we should take this as a red flag. We're in this position because of us, but we can also fix the position because of us. So that's why it's so crucial. I mean, in November, if the Democrats win the House, the Senate, and the presidency, we will do a lot of shit because we'll have the power. But we can't do it now.
We just need to talk to as many people as we possibly can.
Absolutely. I had somebody write me on one of my DMs, And this person comes to me every day with some tragedy in the news and say, "Oh, I'm terrified of this. I'm terrified of this. Talk me off the ledge." And I go, I'm really not a psychologist. I'll tell you. You just listen to my TikToks and you'll hear what you need to hear. But this person wants, and he was so dejected about this delay in the in the sentencing that he goes, "We're just fucked. Nothing's going to work. We might as well just give up." And I said, "So what are you suggesting you do?" And he has no real plan to do it. And I explained to him, I said, "Listen, buddy, somebody who talks like you, that's given up and crying and whining, I dislike you as much as almost any Trumplefuck, because the Trumplefucks are trying to hurt us and you're of no use to us. You're of no help. You're dead weight in the effort to try to beat these people. This is a fucking war. Sometimes it gets hard, but you got to continue to be tough and continue to drive. And if you're not willing to drive, go sit in the back, get in a fetal position, and we'll wake you when we're fucking done."
Well, that and the far left faction
Yeah.
that doesn't want to vote for him because of Gaza and all that bullshit. Come on, really, wake the fuck up. Let's vote for Joe Biden.
I honestly think that the far left, though, they say that for leverage. But when it comes down to it and they've got to vote for Joe Biden or Donald Trump, they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. That would be fucking
Well,
crazy.
no, but do you think they'll actually vote,
Um,
or do you think they will just sit it out like the fucking moron Trumplafox?
I don't, I don't know that they'll sit it out because of the seriousness of the condition of the country. I've said before on the show, when I talk to young people, and I guess this could go to the radical left too, is this: you got two options. You got Joe Biden and you got Donald Trump. Now, you may not like Joe Biden. You may have to hold your nose when you vote for Joe Biden, but here's the situation you have. If you vote for Joe Biden, you may have to deal with shit that you don't like. But when it's all said and done in 2028, you'll have your opportunity to vote whoever you want in. But if you vote for Donald Trump, there's no guarantee that 2028 you'll be able to vote for anybody. So you can either take a longer path to get what you want or vote for the other guy and never get what you want. It seems like a fucking easy choice.
Absolutely. Hey, because in 2028, if the other guy wins, you're going to get to vote for Trump Jr.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that sounds a little panicky, and I'm not panicky
Yeah,
about it at all, but it,
I'm not either.
if that really happened, that is conceivable.
It,
That
it,
is
it
conceivable.
actually is conceivable. I don't want to think that it is, but that is where I see it going with the Republican Party.
But yeah, that's the way the Republican Party is going for now. When they lose in November, they're going to have to change everything up if they intend to stay viable. Because, it seems to me the Supreme Court, as much as they're working against this country, whether they're doing it purposely or inadvertently, and I have to think it's inadvertently, but they seem to be sabotaging the Republican Party. And here's what I mean. 2022, they overturned Roe v. Wade. This is a dog chasing a car that they never hoped to catch, and then they did. And as soon as they overturned Roe v. Wade, they thought, well, these women, well, they'll forget about it and we'll be fine in 2022. We're going to have a red wave. And then, of course, the red wave didn't come. And the reason the red wave didn't come was because of Roe v. Wade. Now, Roe v. Wade is still a big issue, maybe even a bigger issue because we've been without it for 2 years. So that's still on the table. And then 5 months before the next election in 2024, Supreme Court back out there again. And this time he's giving a president absolute immunity. I think people will react to that decision almost as strongly as overturning Roe v. Wade. So now you got Roe v. Wade and this decision working against the Republicans come November. It's like they're sabotaging this shit.
Yeah, I actually have a child. Him and his girlfriend have a problem right now, and
Now, when you say
They
child, when you say child, we're not talking about a kid locked in the basement. This is your actual child. I
yeah,
mean, you're in
yeah, yeah.
you're in Utah, for God's sake.
He's 21.
Okay.
But him and his girlfriend just had a problem, uh, and they need Roe v. Wade, basically.
Right.
Uh, uh, and I just I want to pound it into their heads that if you you don't vote,
So,
you're going to lose your rights to do what you guys need to do.
well, what
They
is the,
they actually lost a child.
okay. I'm sorry to hear that. My condolences. But is Utah a um, a state where abortion is limited or just flat out banned?
Uh, I I know it's limited. It's not Idaho,
Right.
but but
It's not 6 weeks.
yeah,
Maybe I can find.
I don't know the exact rules. I mean, but she has. Uh, I shouldn't go into this right now.
Yeah, that's
I'm sorry.
fine. That's fine. That's fine. Uh, the question I would have is how she is she fine now?
Yes, yes,
Okay. Well,
yes,
that's
yeah,
the important thing. Okay. This is what it says about Utah. If you're 18 weeks, 0 days pregnant or less, it's legal for you to get an abortion in Utah. So that's not terrible. I mean, I don't know if that's optimal, but 18 weeks is a lot better than 6 weeks. At least you'll know you're pregnant and you do have some options.
yeah,
However, you're absolutely right that even though Utah's laws are a little less stringent than some other states, um, if the Republicans get in, they're going to make it a national law and it's
yeah.
going to be banned everywhere. So you're right. If they don't vote, they're going to be put in a position if they ever have to have some reproductive health care that they're not going to be able to get it because the Republicans say they can't.
Yeah, and we have that fucking moron Mike Lee.
Oh,
So
Jesus Christ. He
yeah,
is such a sycophantic fuck.
I Mike, if I could, I would go to that man's house and beat his ass.
I'd go with you. I'd go with you because he's been one of the biggest Trump humpers. Um,
Oh yeah, and he just he plays it down like like he's not.
yeah.
And that stupid son of a bitch, I want to punch him in the face. I really do.
Now, just for the sake of argument, you don't mean that literally. We don't need Secret Service or somebody going to your house, and they're not
No, no,
over a
no,
rep.
no,
But
absolutely not.
you're angry enough to do him harm, and there's a lot of Republicans I could say the same for. I think that's the most difficult thing is that here's Donald Trump, the dumbest guy in the room, and everybody gets behind him and say, I like what he's saying. I mean, these people, many of these reps and senators and congressmen, they're smarter than that. It's not about them not knowing he's dumb and a bad guy. It's just all about being opportunistic. Well, if I side with him, he'll be nice to me and I'll get votes and I get money. That's how
Okay,
bad it is.
okay, I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay.
They're not smarter than him
Oh,
because for fuck's sakes, they're following him.
yeah.
Come on, come on. The American people are smarter than that. Period, Mike.
Yeah.
Period.
I agree. I agree. Well, the thing is, I've talked about this before too, is that I don't understand that they're not smart enough to know the end is near. I mean, Donald Trump is going to go off the cliff. I don't care what anybody says. He's not going to win the election. He's going to be left in the desert by himself because nobody's going to want to stand next to that stinky motherfucker. But when that happens, what are all these people that stood by him till the end going to do? I always make the phrase they're going to be standing there with their mouth agape and their least impressive appendage in their hand, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um, because they're going to say, oh, yeah, I never liked Donald Trump. And they're going to try to walk away from him. But it's too late. You've already rolled in the Donald Trump stink and it's never coming off.
Yeah. And I hope the closest ones to him fucking sit right in the cell next to that son of a bitch.
Well, you were talking about the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the sitting members of Congress. We've heard about the prospect of superseding indictments from Jack Smith after the election with the sitting members of Congress. I understand why he might want to do that. If we continue to have to fuck around with Donald Trump and play his games, there's really nothing stopping Jack Smith from going after all these sitting members of Congress, Ginny Thomas's, and all these because guess what? They don't have any kind of immunity. You might as well just go after all of them and burn that shit down and leave Donald Trump with fucking nothing.
I fucking hope they do it. I hope Jack Smith takes them all down.
Yeah, I do too.
The best day was yesterday when that stupid son of a bitch Steve Bannon went to jail. God, these far right sons of bitches just need to go to jail. All of them. All of them.
You know, it's ironic.
Mike, I don't want to sound uneducated or
no, you sound
like a Republican, but they need to go to jail.
Yeah. I agree. They and it's not even for their sake. There needs to be accountability for all these people, including Donald Trump, to save America. People always say that, well, if Donald Trump goes to jail, then there's going to be a civil war. I'm not at all afraid of the Republicans rising up, but I'm afraid of the Democrats rising up if Donald Trump isn't accountable, because they're going to see they'll think their country's burning down and they'll get scared, and people react weird when they get scared.
Well, there's one thing that the far right doesn't realize is that we that lean left, that are independent, are firm believers in the Second Amendment. You know,
right?
I don't want to say much more than that, but
well,
come at me.
Yeah. The thing about it is the perception of Republicans is we're the tough guys and the Democrats are the wimps. Well, I tell you what, walk up to me sometime. I'm not going to run away from you, and I'm not going to cry. And if you slap me in the mouth, I'm going to slap you back. I'm not the toughest guy in the world, but I'm not afraid of you motherfuckers.
Absolutely. And that's just how we need to be. And just because we're liberal, you know, one thing I have noticed here in Utah is when one of these guys calls me a libtard or a liberal, I ask them, all you have to do is ask them, define liberal.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? They have no idea what liberal means.
Mike,
it means, for fuck's sakes, that you are open-minded and willing to accept somebody else's opinion. That's all liberal means.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Mike. You can ask a Trump-la-fuck to define anything, and they're going to have trouble. It doesn't matter what word it fucking is.
Yeah.
And I've never seen myself as a liberal or a conservative, because that suggests that there are clubs that are right and wrong, and they all have everything is wrong and everything is right. What I ascribe to is what's right and what's true.
Okay. I agree with you 100% right there. I'm not liberal. I'm not conservative, but because what's right and wrong, right?
There's some liberal shit that's wrong. I mean, when it comes to the abortion issue, do I like abortion? No, I don't like the prospect of it, but I know there's circumstances where it's absolutely necessary. But my concern about Roe v. Wade isn't about abortion. It's very simple. You can't take a citizen of the United States and take a constitutional right away from them and that not be a red flag. Whether you like abortion or don't like abortion, taking rights away from women and bodily autonomy, that's wrong according to the Constitution in this country. That's the difference between right and wrong.
Yes. Yes, I 100% agree. I'm not pro-abortion. I'm not for I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm pro-choice.
it's
You
like
know what I
anything.
mean?
It's like anything. It's like
I
anything else. It depends on the circumstances. I mean, you probably heard Old Soul on this program and some of the stories
yes,
she's told where women desperately need this right to have an abortion for their very lives, for their own health and welfare. How can you deny that? You know,
you
there's
can't.
exceptions to everything.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not for abortion. I'm not against abortion. You know what I mean. It's a case by case basis that needs to be between the doctor and the woman,
Right.
and we have no fucking right to tell them how to go about it.
Right. Exactly. You know, I have a wife and she's beyond the age of having children, so it's never going to be an issue for us in that situation. I have two sons. Um, they're smart enough to deal with situations properly, and we happen to live in Minnesota, so it's a little more liberal. But I have a granddaughter too, and if down the road somebody comes to me and say, you know, your granddaughter's cute and nice and everything, but we're going to take away some of her constitutional rights. I may be
Yeah,
85 years old, but there's going to be a fucking fight.
yeah. I'll be right fucking behind you.
Exactly. And we all should. I mean, whether we have females that are in a reproductive stage of their life, we should want to protect everybody's constitutional rights because the moment they take one constitutional right, they're going to take more. And they're already trying to do that. So it's not like they're hiding this. And this is why it's so important we push back and maintain everybody's constitutional rights, not just the ones that affect us.
And that's that whole deal with this project 2025.
Yeah.
We need to spread the word about that and get that out there.
Yeah.
I constantly tell my kids about it and they think I'm fucking crazy. And I'm like, guys, go read this shit.
Yeah. Well,
But they don't believe me.
you know, what I heard somebody talking about it with this Supreme Court decision and people coming out and saying, well, this is the start of 2025. And people want me to talk endlessly about 2025. Here's my problem with talking about it. The only way 2025 happens, the only way it can happen is if Donald Trump wins the presidency and the Republicans win the House and the Senate. And that's just not going to happen. So people want to pour over this 2025 and instill fear in everybody. Oh God, we're scared to death, as if that's going to make them go vote. I don't like trying to make people fearful here. I want them to know the facts. 2025 is a horrible manifesto, but that's all it is. It's a fucking piece of paper. And unless a lot of things line up, it's never going to be a real thing.
I sure as hell hope not, especially with all these billionaires behind it. That kind of worries me.
Do you understand that you or anybody else and everybody else that's fearful of that 2025 manifesto, that's exactly what the Republicans want you to do. They want you to be afraid. Their whole strategy is about instilling fear in their own people and in the Democrats. That's why when I hear all these things, oh my God, Joe Biden's going to step aside, this is all coming from the Republicans. They want you to be afraid. They want you to be unsure. And I refuse to let them do that fucking to me.
Yeah, well, I just jumped over in your court. So
Okay. You know, like I say, this is a fight. You've got to take every advantage, and you can't be pulled in by the tricks that they're going to try to pull. And that's what they're doing. The media is doing the same thing. The media would love if Joe Biden stepped aside. They don't
And
care about the country. They don't care about the future of the people in this country. All they know is if Joe steps aside, that's big news, and that means big money for them. That's why they're talking about him stepping aside. It has
well,
nothing to do with the country or what's best for the country.
the thing of it is, Mike, is I didn't watch any news media, not Fox, not CNN, not CNBC, not any of that shit. I did not watch anything. I got on TikTok 2 years ago,
Right.
and that's where I get most of my
I'm getting
most of my.
most of mine too from there. Oddly enough, there's a lot of good creators.
There are, and it's, it's not hard to go and fact check them and get most of the creators on TikTok are they're they're right down to earth. Goddamn,
Right.
they tell you the truth.
There's a
They're
number of TikTok people like we talked about that young kid Harry Sisson. You've got Hawk and
Hawk,
you've got Chasing Oz and you've got Stella Mags. These people are
Johnny Bananas,
Johnny Bananas. They're Midas Touch. What's the other one? A Ring of Fire.
uh,
Um, Brian Tyler Cohen. Yeah,
yes,
all those people
uh,
are really good. Now, I can't sit and watch any of them for any long period of time, but I get bits and pieces enough to get it in my head so I can dig out the facts for myself. Um,
absolutely, absolutely.
but I probably get more inspiration and more tips for news stories on TikTok than I do in cable news. And that didn't used to be the case, but it is now.
Yeah, well, you can't believe what you hear on cable.
Now,
Especially goddamn Fox and all that bullshit. It's,
well, the thing about TikTok, one of the reasons why it's better for me is because I sit and watch the same people every day, so I know them. I also know they don't have a boss telling them what to do or trying to manipulate them so that they can get more views. These people are just doing what they do. And that was kind of my goal when I started doing the Rational Boomer thing. I thought, how am I going to get followers? Then I realized trying to get followers is the wrong thing. I'm not young and handsome. I'm not particularly talented. I'm not the most brilliant guy out here on TikTok. So I said, I'm just going to sit here in my living room, tell people what I know. We'll see what fucking happens. So when people listen to me, they know I'm doing my best to get the facts and the truth. And I'm not doing it in any fancy way. I'm just putting it out there. And that's what a lot of creators do. And that's why I feel more comfortable with them.
yeah, and God damn it, I appreciate everything you say and do.
I
And I tell
appreciate that.
everybody to listen to you. Everybody.
I appreciate that, because when I started doing TikTok, I had no idea what was going to happen. I thought I'd get a few thousand followers. I try to do the podcast, and I plod my way through. The idea that many people that's been the most heartening thing about this. I'm an old guy. If you looked at me walking down the street, you go, "Oh, there's a Trump humper," but of course I'm not. And then it was a matter of thinking, am I a fucking unicorn? Am I the only old guy that doesn't vote for Trump? Well, I currently have 340,000 people following me on TikTok, and I block all Trump uppers. So it's heartening to know that there are a lot of people that think like you and I in our age range. And
Yeah.
that tells us we have more power than we ever imagined.
Yes. And I sure as hell hope in November we all come out and make it happen.
I'm laughing because there I understand it completely, but there is one phrase that's said to me over and over again in the DMs and in the comments over and over. And I've really come, well, I don't hate it. I understand it. But everybody always says to me, God, I hope you're right. And the reason I look at that negatively is because I'm pretty certain about what I think. And if there was any question in my mind, I would think that is a kind of a weakness. I know what's going to happen. I
It's
feel it.
it's
I see it. I know the facts. I know what's going to happen.
it's not a weakness, Mike. We're all looking to your wisdom.
Well, if you're looking to me for wisdom, you may be in for a surprise. I don't know if I have that much wisdom. What I have is the ability to talk and not even talk well, just talk a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you talk pretty goddamn good.
Compared to Trumplefucks, anybody does.
Well, that's not hard though, so don't compare yourself to that.
No, no, no. Um, so the next 4 months are going to be crazy. You know, that one of the things I've said is you have to understand what's going on with Republicans now. They're kind of like the guy who's a deadbeat. He's in his house and he's getting foreclosed on. He can or won't dig himself out. So he's going to ride it out to the last day until he's kicked out of his house. And because he's angry and because he's stupid, now he's going to tear up the house, punch holes in walls, tear up the carpet, break shit because he's just mad. And that's kind of the stage we're in now with the Republicans. They know that the millennials and Gen Zs are going to take control in 2028 and they won't survive. So they're trying to hang on to anything they can get right now. And if they can't win, they're going to destroy it in their wake.
Yeah, yeah, that's a pretty good goddamn analogy. I, I, I couldn't have said that better myself. I don't know.
Well, if you could, you'd have a podcast. So
Yeah. Well, I might come back there where you at Indiana and sit in your living room with you.
I'm in Minnesota.
No, Minnesota. Sorry,
Indiana, for God's sake. Indiana's a
I
fine
I
state, but
apologize.
There's a lot of Trumple fucks there in Indiana.
Yeah, that well, don't you have a Minnesota too? Or
We have pockets of them and a lot in the rural areas. And there's a couple of suburbs that have a lot of Trumple fucks. That's the one time, you know, Eileen recognized me in Costco in a southern suburb here. Um, and I always make the joke when we go someplace that's heavy Trumple fuck. I always say to my wife, I hope they don't recognize me here because they ain't gonna like me.
yeah, yeah. After this, I'm probably going to get recognized here.
Maybe. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not Joe Rogan over here. We don't have millions of people
You,
watching. We have a pretty
you,
good chunk.
you're way fucking better than that moron.
Oh, yeah, he is a moron, but he's got millions and millions of viewers. How, I don't know. But I kind of liked him at first, and ever since then, he said something. One time he said something wrong and then he tried to apologize for it. And he goes, you got to understand, I'm just a dumbass. And that's the one thing we agreed on. He is a dumbass. And if
Yeah.
he's a dumbass, you got to take what he said for what it's worth.
Well, come on. Quit spreading disinformation though, and that's what he does.
Yeah, he does. And again, you know, it's as much as Joe Rogan has a podcast, he's not much different than the cable news because now he's signed on to Spotify. It's all about advertising, it's all about attention, it's all about publicity, and it's not about necessarily the truth. I um, I was a producer for a guy who did a talk show in Minnesota back in the late 70s, early 80s, and he did this talk show, and he was just a fucking goofball. Um, and he would go into the show. We'd sit down beforehand. He goes, "What are we going to talk about?" And he said, "We're going to talk about abortion." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "What side do you think we should take?" He just picked whatever side he thought would get the most stir in the audience. And that's how the media does things. You know, it's all fabricated. It's not real. And that's why I try to keep it as real as I can doing the podcast because I don't have.
And mm, I think some of the population knows that, but most of them don't.
Well,
You know what I mean? And they fall for that shit, and they listen to every goddamn thing they say.
well, you know, there are people who watch Fox News, OAN, and Newsmax and thinks that's absolutely real and absolutely the truth. And I think a large faction of those people are also the people that watch professional wrestling. Now, I have no problems with professional wrestling if you understand what it is. But if you
Yeah.
believe it's real, then you're probably watching Fox News.
I would have to agree with you there, sir.
It's absolutely crazy. Well, Mike, we're going to wrap things up. We've got through the point. We put in a good long show. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. I always like having new people because it's always great getting a different perspective, a different experience in life. And while you're a younger guy, I give you a lot of credit because you know some shit and you're willing to talk about it and you're living in blue dot hell. So
Well, Mike, I appreciate you having me on, and I hope I can come talk again.
well, as I've told people before, all you have to do is email me. I will tell you this, we are getting a lot more people who want to be on the show. So it's not always possible to get on as fast as it once was, which is good. More people participating is great. But if you email me and say you want to come on, we'll find a way to get you on. In fact,
Mike, you got me on there pretty goddamn fast. So
I did. Well, it was because I had a bunch of people on, and I like to do some alone just to break it up a little bit. But then as you emailed me, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do it alone tonight, but it would be way easier, way more fun if I have Mike on the show. So you're on the show today because I'm a lazy bastard.
I'm okay with that.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
So, Mike, thank you. You're welcome back anytime. Those of you out there, I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I hope you have a great day. And of course, we'll talk to you again tomorrow.